Welcome to the Elijah Rising podcast. Elijah Rising is an organization empowering women recovering from sexual exploitation. This episode is going to help you become more aware about the issue of sex trafficking and inspire you to take action.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Adam, and today I'm joined by Kathy McGibbon-Givens. Once again, it's such an honor to have Kathy here with us. She is a wife, a mother, an author, a playwright who has overcome the dark world of sex trafficking. She is also the co-founder of 1211 Partners, a survivor-led nonprofit organization focused on supporting those who are overcoming sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Kathy, welcome back to the Elijah Rising podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
I am so excited to have you back because today on the podcast, we're asking the primary question: how can we best resource those who have and are currently experiencing exploitation? But before we jump into that, I want to know about 1211 Partners. Who is it? What is it? What do you guys do? And why did you start an organization?
Yeah, great question. Loaded question. Happy to answer that. So really 1211 Partners, it was birthed through the brains of overcomers. Let me say that. Overcomers of trafficking.
Birthed through the brains of overcomers.
Literally,
I love that.
yeah.
I love the way you said that.
Yeah, so, I've been in this anti-trafficking space for quite some time, and just partnering with organizations, working for organizations, volunteering. And in that time, I was able to just take a look at the landscape and just see, okay, what's my place here and what do I do?
Yeah, sure.
So I got together with some overcomers to look at some of the gaps, because we found that a lot of individuals who went through programs from A to Z, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, if they weren't returning to the life, they were, severely at risk of being re-exploited.
Even after going through programs.
Yeah. So, that got me to thinking, like, how is this happening, right? Because we spend a lot of resources, a lot of time. We do our best to try to make sure that these individuals are restored and ready for real life. But there was something missing. And so, again, got with some other overcomers to think about, you just take a look at it and figure out, okay, what is it?
Yeah.
And the number one thing that we heard was community, lack of community after programs.
Wow.
So a lot of individuals were like, hey, yeah, the program was great, but when I left, no one contacted me, or I felt alone, or, 5 years down the road. And if you think about it, what program has the time, the resources to follow an entire journey of an individual?
Maybe 30, 40 more years down the road, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And so we found very quickly that was going to be our niche. That was going to be our place, our lane, so that we can help build community and walk alongside those who have graduated and completed programs, and then those that choose not to go into programs, because there are those individuals as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. One of the things we've learned at Elijah Rising is, like, one of the most important things you can do to help resource overcomers is relationship, like real relationship. And what I mean by that is, like, just knowing them and listening to them and, validating who they are. And so kind of what I hear you saying is, like, that has to last forever. Like, that can't just be a programmatic element. Like, something about that has to be experienced. And I would assume there's something very critically important about having that community with others who have gone through a similar trauma and who have been in the life and who have come out of life and are working through those things. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and a larger community, right? Because I think a lot of programs, for a lot of people, it's a cushion. And so it's kind of like you're in school. When you graduate, you get that diploma, that degree. You graduate and you're like, okay, now what do I need to do with this? So you have the skills. You just need someone to walk alongside you to help apply them. Yeah,
that's so cool. So the issue of sex trafficking, I think we can all kind of admit that it's becoming more and more of a mainstream social issue. And that's not to take away from the fact that, like, I think there's still a ton of work to be done in terms of awareness and education about what sex trafficking is, how it works. But it seems to be talked about a lot more. I mean, when I started doing this work, 10 years ago, hardly anybody knew what the term even meant. And now, it's just out there. So, and I think that has, like, some positives, right? The more awareness, the better. But it also has some downsides. Often people see a news story or read a post on social media or, hear some anecdote from a friend about trafficking. And then they have this feeling of like, well, I have to do something. I want to do something. And so they pick a quick response.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question I want to ask you, Kathy, is like, what are some, before we get into like what is helpful, what are some unhelpful ways that, from your kind of expert positioning, what are some unhelpful ways, or even maybe, if I could put it this way, some damaging ways that people are responding to this issue and trying to help?
Yeah, and I think you called it, right? A lot of the response is emotionally driven. So in the moment, what can I do in the moment? Oh my goodness, I just heard this story. I need to, number one, I need to feel good about helping someone. I need that person to be helped by me.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the tricky thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things is starting programs without taking the time to learn about the issue, right? So like, yeah, I'm going to start this organization and it's going to be great and I'll just learn along the way. But when you're dealing with human lives, you've got to take the time to like learn about the issue, do your research and figure out, okay, what, again, looking at the landscape, look at some of the gaps and figure out what your skills are.
Yeah.
And what you can bring to this, what can you bring to the table to help human lives, right?
Yeah.
Not just a cause. Another thing is stop seeing it as a cause and seeing it as individuals, because it's easy to want to jump in and do something because it's hype, right? It's the talk of the.
It's hype.
It's the talk now, right?
It is,
it's like, oh yeah, the trafficking movement. I was on a conversation last week, and I was like talking with someone outside of the anti-trafficking space, and she was like, oh yeah, the anti-trafficking movement, y'all got that sewed up, and I'm like, well, no, we really don't.
Yes.
So people view it as like this thing, that's like, and it's weird to me because we're forgetting that it's not about the cause or a movement. It's literally about changing the lives that are affected by trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation.
Yeah.
So we've taken our eyes off of the people, and now it's just become this thing that we want to get involved in to say that dangerous. I'm doing something.
It's too dangerous to dehumanize the issue.
Yeah.
Is what I hear you saying. These are real human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is resharing, just something simple like social media, resharing and reposting things that may not be true, or reposting and resharing things before doing the research and getting the facts and the data behind it. You want to make sure that if you're spreading awareness, that it's the right type of awareness, right? You're not spreading like conspiracy theories and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that if I'm going to tell my family about this, it needs to be the truth and it needs to be factual. So just take the time to do some research. I think that's one of the things that's damaging and harmful, especially to victims and survivors, is that people are sharing all these false images and false information, and it takes the eyes off of, again, the people that are being affected by it and the true issues. Another thing is, I think that we have to be mindful of those emotions when we hear things, because the first response is like, I want to go rescue someone.
Yeah.
Like I want to join a rescue mission and I want to
kick in a door somewhere.
Yeah. And that's harmful too, because, even when we do outreach, it's like, I'm seeing the damage in someone versus seeing the strength in someone. So now I'm seeing just the brokenness instead of seeing a person that has so much potential and full of purpose. I don't see that. I just see someone that needs to be fixed, and I want to be the fixer. So those are just some of the things that I would say is really damaging. Yeah,
I want to stick there kind of with that last point for just a second. Like, seeing the problem, being very problem focused and damage focused, and then seeing yourself as somebody who maybe you're conscious of it or not, but you have like a measure of privilege. And so you think that you can step into that place and you can be the fixer. Yeah. So there's kind of a term for that. It's called the savior mentality. And so I kind of just want you to get to have a space to just respond to that. Like, what do you think about that? And like, how can we, because I do this work, right? Yeah. I have a place of privilege, no doubt about it. How do people like, me, myself, who's a career kind of activist, if that's the right word to even use for what I do, but like who's in this place, but even, maybe it's just the random citizen. How do we avoid that savior mentality and that fixer mentality that you're talking about there?
Yeah, I can easily sum that up and answer the question by saying, hey, we need to stay in our place and stay in our lane and know that there's only one savior, right? There's only, that's it. There's only one savior. Yeah. But to break it down a little bit, we need to start with self. So why am I in it? Why did that hit me so hard to the point where I want to get involved? Is it about me? Like, what is my why? What is my purpose? Because you got to have a why. In anything, this is a broken and fallen world, right? And if we can fix everything we could, but we're called to different things. Why are we called to different things? Right? And so you have to look at self and do a self-examination and figure out, why am I doing this? What is my purpose and why am I here? Because if you can't figure that out, then you don't need to be doing it. That's when the savior mentality comes in and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to fill my voids by helping someone else. And that's a very dangerous place to be in for the giver and the receiver. And then also, like I said, check your motives. That's a huge one. And then don't see the problem, see the strengths. That's another way to prevent the savior mentality. Because if I only see someone that is broken and needs to be bandaged and needs to be healed, then I'm going to try to be that healer. But if I see someone that, again, I said this earlier, that is full of purpose and potential, then I just want to partner with you to make sure that you're dope, right? Just to make sure that you succeed and thrive. And it becomes more about a partnership and we're doing this together versus me trying to save you. Yeah,
that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, I guess it really is about you gotta do self-work first, right? Like, what is your motivation? Like, what's the true motivation of your heart in whatever you feel like you're supposed to be doing? And I appreciate your note too about know your lane, because a lot of times there is a lot of mission creep, a lot of lane switching that's happening out there. That can be damaging. It can be damaging to the work that we're all trying to do for good.
Absolutely. I heard someone call it. She said, what did she say? She said, this is not a glamour gig. So this is not something that we're going to go into and get all pretty and we're going to do some press conferences and get on TV and I'm going to be famous because I'm going to be known for the philanthropist and I'm going to it's not a glamour gig. It's literally in the trenches with people that need to come out of the trenches, right? And so it's not about being getting a name for ourselves or anything like that. And that's another thing too, to prevent the savior mentality. We got to make sure that we're not in it for a glamour gig because it's not that.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, the heroes, I just talked about Elijah Rising, the heroes on our team are the ones you've never seen on this podcast. They're the ones that are in the house with our clients, with the residents day to day, that are going through the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, right? I mean, and why are they doing it? What's their motivation? It's they want to serve. They want to go low and they want to live, in that place of working through trauma. They don't host the podcast, you know what I mean? And so, which is a check for me personally, which is why I asked you the question. It's very self-serving. I hope the listeners and viewers get something out of it too, but I'm trying to learn. So let's talk about a better way then. Yeah. I want to do this kind of in a series of questions. I want to take like an airplane view, right? I want to take kind of a larger societal approach in the way that I ask you these next questions. And then we're eventually going to work down to the local level, because I think that's really where the majority of the work gets done. Right. Is the one-on-one, the local, the individualized approach. But I do want to start from the top and kind of work our way down. So first, what do those experiencing exploitation and those recovering from exploitation need at kind of a federal, national level? For example, law changes or public policy changes or social justice advocacy, intersectionality issues. And I realize as I ask this question, that could probably be an entire podcast. Yeah. But, but how can we, from a larger societal view, what are the ways that we can best resource overcomers?
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind is promoting housing and economic sustainability from a federal level. Yeah. So what does that look like? Well, if we examine a lot of the problem and the issues that individuals have that cause them to be exploited or put them at risk for being exploited.
Those vulnerabilities
are real, right? So poverty issues, mental health issues, there are certain things that people need before they're even exploited. They need that fixed. We need to look at, social institutions like family and school, and like what are we doing from a federal level to make sure that our families are staying together, to make sure that our school systems are up to par and diverse, and making sure that everyone has access to higher education. So those things like that. And then poverty, right? We need to look at the poverty levels in our communities. From a federal level, those are things that we need to be addressing, and that we've been addressing, or we've been trying to address for years and years and years. Yeah. We haven't gotten the answer yet. But those are some of the things that victims currently in the life need. They need help. They need another way out. They need another answer. They need, single moms need to be able to have access to equitable employment and childcare, and take care of their children so that they won't have to go to the clubs, which is where they possibly may meet a pimp or a trafficker. And, like the whole, it's just a whole downline. And the schools, right? So I've been taking a look at like this space. I hate to call it a movement, y'all. I'm trying to get away from it. I don't want to be in a movement.
Played out term.
But I've been taking a look at the space, and I'm like, okay, so have we been addressing our young boys, our youth? Because in order to stop the demand, if we say that the majority of traffickers or exploiters are men, are males, then someone needs to be talking to our young boys. We don't need just... We've come a long way with women's rights and girl empowerment and all of that stuff, but I don't see a lot of initiatives that are directed to our males, our young boys in schools, our adolescent group. So even looking at that, like what systems are in place from a federal level that can save our youth?
Yeah, that's excellent. We're going to take a break in the podcast, but when we come back, as I kind of set up there on that question, we're going to just kind of keep peeling back the layers and keep going down and down till we get to a real kind of personal way of resourcing overcomers. So we'll see you on the other side of the break.
4 years ago, we started making candles in my kitchen because we had a dream to empower women recovering from sex trafficking. After years of growing, changing, and perfecting what we truly believe to be the perfect candle, we now sell goods across the country that empower women who are recovering from sex trafficking. And we want you to help us so that we can give more jobs to women that are in our program. Go to shop.elijahrising.org and you can see some of the most amazing goods you've ever tried, as well as empower the next woman to have a future after sex trafficking. And we have a special code for all of our podcast listeners. Just use the code PODCAST when you check out for a special discount.
Hey, welcome back. Kathy, in this kind of second half of the conversation, I want us to move away from that, like global changes or societal level changes, and think more specifically about individuals who are being exploited right here, right now, in our neighborhood, right here in Houston. So it's kind of the mindset I want us to get into as we continue the rest of the conversation. And I do want to make a note at this point, and you've kind of already said it in a different way, but every single person is unique. Mm-hmm. Every single person's situation is unique, which means that every overcomer of trafficking, every woman who's out there being trafficked right now, their context is unique, their trauma is unique. There is no archetype of a survivor of trafficking, right? So we're speaking in generalized terms here, which I think is important to point out, especially considering the first half of the conversation. We don't want to just look at this big problem. We don't think about individual lives.
Right.
So Kathy, in your work, what are the most common needs that you see of those who are still currently experiencing commercial sexual exploitation?
That question, man, like you can break it down and it's just really practical.
Okay.
If we think about what we need to survive and to thrive, like I think we just overcomplicate. I know this is a complex issue. Don't get me wrong.
No, go for it.
This is an oxymoron, but on my part. But it's not that complicated. It really isn't. These are people. So if you think about our own lives, like what did I need? I needed to be clothed. I needed food. I needed education. I needed, a shelter.
Yeah.
So some of those things, it's like, oh my gosh, what do survivors need? What do victims need? And it's like, well, what did you need growing up?
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some of those practical things. So number one, I would say like housing Housing is huge. Safe housing, because when we go out and we do outreach and we're telling these women and men that, hey, we have a better life for you and you can be great. We're promising them something.
Yeah.
So at that moment, we need to make sure that they have access to what we're promising them.
We can fulfill the promise.
Exactly. And that just doesn't mean, hey, come into my program. This is a lifelong thing. So if I go into your program, you mean to tell me that I'm going to get a good job? You mean to tell me that I can go back to school? You mean to tell me that I can get my criminal history erased? You mean to tell me that I can get my kids back from CPS? You mean to tell me that I can pay all my legal fees? Because that's what that means. When you tell me that you're going to help me, that's what that means. It doesn't mean I'm going to come into your program and, for the 2 years of my life is going to be great. And then after that, I'm going to have to hustle and fight on my own. So we need to look at that, right? We need to look beyond what our scope of care has been and really just look at it from a holistic approach. So again, what do we need? Housing. A lot of individuals need transportation to and from work, to get to work. We have a bus line, but it doesn't go everywhere.
That's right.
Some people, I know individuals that work late nights, like waitressing and stuff. We don't want them out there taking the bus.
Right.
Childcare is huge. People need childcare, and you can't afford $400, $500 a week for
nobody
childcare.
Can.
Nobody can. Like, depending on how many kids you have, that's just unrealistic, right? And so, employment. I really want to encourage employment partners and these businesses that are so scared to hire anyone with any type of past. Like, that's unrealistic. These women, these men, these boys, these girls have skills, they have knowledge, they have wisdom, they can be of so much value to your organizations and companies. We just need to give them a shot.
As Sam likes to put it, they already got the hustle. We just need to hand them the holy hustle.
There you go.
And thrive in the middle of it.
There you go. Exactly. Health insurance is another thing. So if I can't, go to the doctor and get my medications, or if I can't get my checkups, or, if I am trying to be, handle my mental health and stuff like that, like how am I going to pay for it? Again, after you kind of graduate from programs, what do you have? Okay, we have Medicaid and we have Lone Star, but do we want to keep them there? I know that's a blessing, right? But at the same time, how do they get to that insurance?
Right.
They get maybe through equitable employment, maybe for real companies and businesses that actually offer insurance packages and stuff. And then community and direct cash assistance is what I've seen. So I'm really advocating for direct cash assistance.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? Say more.
Yeah, I know, we have these wonderful services and resources and stuff that we offer to victims and survivors as an incentive, like to, hey, leave the life, especially victims, like to leave the life.
Yeah.
But, we're so scared to put cash in their hands or to trust them because we think, oh my gosh, they're just going to use it and they're going to buy drugs, or they're going to use it and they're going to buy this. But really, what if they just need to pay their phone bill? What if they just need to get their car fixed? We're seeing only the bad stuff. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen. Hey, a hustler's a hustler. Like, hey, you give it to him, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, if you're partnering with me and you say that I give you the benefit of the doubt and I know that you're going to be great, then we need to trust that and believe that and give them a shot. Direct cash assistance goes a long way, especially with the pandemic. We saw that the need for that was huge.
Great example.
Yeah. So, for what we do at 1211, we offer mentorship and life skills and career skills and all that. Well, you can't really get past, you can't get to the life skills and the goal setting if I have basic needs that need to be met.
Yeah. So,
hey, what is your need right now? Well, I need money for groceries, or I need money to pay my light bill. Great. Let me get you that money to pay your light bill. And it doesn't have to go directly in their hands. Maybe pay the landlord if you have a trust issue. If they're behind on rent. That went a long way. A long way. And so, of course, do it with wisdom, but we need to be able to understand, again, look at what you needed. I need money. Like, I can't live off of $50 gift cards. Me personally, I got stuff I need to pay.
Right.
These people have stuff that they need to pay.
Yeah.
And so maybe just a little support on that end would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe you've kind of already touched on kind of where I wanted to go next, but for those, so the next question I was going to ask is for those who have exited the life already, and they're already in that journey of healing, maybe they're in a program, or maybe they are out of a program, or maybe they aren't in a program and have no plans to go into a program because obviously those overcomers do exist. What do you think their needs are? Or is it the same list of needs, or are there other kind of wrinkles to, resourcing them?
I think the same list. It just, it changes. The need for the list changes as people grow. So maybe if they're in program and they've been blessed with a car, they may not need transportation, but they still need childcare, or they still need legal fees that need to be paid, or things like that. Also, access to education. And that doesn't just mean like straight to college, but like all levels of higher education. So vocational skills and training that, again, taking a look at this, if I'm sending you to school, I'm giving you access to your GED, access to your diploma, access to a college degree or whatever. I need to make sure that when you graduate that you can get that job.
Yeah.
And what's going to set you up for that is maybe working on your credit and working on your, your record and stuff like that. So just thinking things, from a practical lens.
Yeah.
I think I think like I said, we've overcomplicated it a lot. It's a complex issue, I know, but like, these are people, and they all have individualized needs, and so also just getting rid of the cookie cutter kind of program or mentality. I think a lot of people have this notion that their idea is the fix, like, oh no, my program's the fix, or no, my idea is the fix,
I
or
see what you're saying.
My advocacy is greater, and it's like, well, absolutely not, because where I may be, where I may be beneficial to one, I may not be beneficial to the next, and that other person needs help too, and so it's a collaborative effort, and we all need to just take a step back and say, okay, what are some practical things that they need? Great. I can do the transportation part. What can you do, Elijah Rising? You know what I mean? Like, we need to just take a step back and reevaluate this whole thing.
Yeah, that's so good. Because like we've learned with our restorative care program, we've learned that like some residents, some clients, they're just not a good fit for our program. They need a different type of program that does, similar provision, but in a different way, or like, they specialize in one thing better than we do or whatever. And so it's like, of course we have to collaborate. Like, of course there has to be this free flow of collaboration and information sharing and even resource sharing in some cases, where it's like, if this woman needs to go to your program, that's great. Like, let's not get territorial about human beings, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother show though. Like, I'm not even going to go there.
Oh, that's a whole nother show. Okay.
That's a whole nother show.
But it's, you know what I mean? I just think you make a great point, because then then it's like that savior complex at like an institutional level, and then, okay, but that's for another show perhaps. Yeah. So what place, this is a bit of a shift in kind of the conversation too, if you're listening and watching us right now, what place, I want to use the word should here, but I kind of hate the word should, but I'm gonna kind of throw it in there. What place could, and I think should, overcomers have in the anti-trafficking community, and like the work that our organizations do, even 1211, but Elijah Rising, all of our partners, where do overcomers fit into this work? They
need to be leading it. Period.
Say more.
Full stop.
Full stop.
They need to be leading it, and they need to, and again, that's that trust factor. Like, oh my gosh, she was, she's broken, or she has this history. Maybe she might not be a good director, or maybe she may not have the education or the wisdom or the knowledge to do this, but we need to give them a chance. Because when you start building relationships with it's all about relationship building. When you truly start building relationships with these individuals, you will find so much value. Like, oh my gosh, like I need that.
Yeah.
Even with 1211 now, it started survivor-led. And when I say survivor-led, I don't mean just me. I mean, like, I'm constantly like, hey, what do we need to do? And what do you want to do? And what do you want to see? Right. I'm constantly communicating with overcomers so that their voices can be elevated, but they need to be leading the movement. We need to bring them on as partners, not just, like advisory councils and all that kind of stuff, but we need to bring them on as partners, so that their voice can be heard, and so that they can use not just their voice, but so they can start using some of these skills. Like we talk about, we're all for like economic justice and equitable employment and but we won't hire them ourselves. So that confuses the heck out of me.
Yeah.
But like, we need to be able to elevate them.
Yeah.
There are so many awesome overcomers that I've encountered that, no, they don't have a spotlight. They may not have their own organization. They may not have their own show. You may not have seen them on a news channel or a press conference.
Right.
Or, they're these underdogs, know, in the anti-trafficking community, but they have so much to bring to the table. So I think we need to be more intentional in seeking those individuals out, right? Yeah. And not just calling on the same people, not just calling on the face. So I'm going to be real candid here. So there's, there are overcomers, including myself. I'll even put myself in that have become like the face, the go-tos.
Yeah.
Why? Why are we stopping there? Why are we okay with just, yada, 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 and Kathy, whoever? I'm not just saying me, but I don't want to call names, obviously. Yeah. But why are we okay with just those faces representing an entire body of people that need help? Every day I'm talking with someone that's like, man, I want to work on public speaking, or I want to do a book, or I want to write something. I think I'm ready to share. Those people are so overlooked.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we need to be more intentional about making platforms and creating safe spaces and creating platforms for these individuals to come and to say, hey, I have that skill, I think I can do that. I may not want to public speak, but I like small groups, and I can, if you have new individuals in your program, I'll speak to them, about my experience, or, just things like that. So I think that they definitely need to be leading the drive in this community for sure.
Kathy, I think there's like a fear. What comes up in me obviously is, well, first of all, you are kind of a face for me. That's why I asked you back on the podcast a second time.
I'm not calling you out, I promise.
No, that's fine. You can call me out all the live long day. I've got thick skin. But and why did I ask you to come back on? Well, it's because I hear you more. You know what I mean? Yep. I see your work more. And so it's you have this place. It's like a self-fulfilling, it's a cycle. I hear Kathy talk a lot of it. And part of that's because I intentionally put myself in places to hear you talk. But what I'm trying to get to is I totally see what you mean by but there's thousands of other overcomers who just don't have that platform yet. Maybe, they haven't written a book, or maybe yet or ever. And so I think I'm kind of doing this extemporaneously right now, but I think also there has been this fear in our movement to be really, really cautious of re-exploitation.
Sure, yeah.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so we don't ask for them to share because we're afraid that if we do, that's a trigger, or bringing them into our platforms, because we raise money that if I bring them on, into a platform, well, then maybe it looks like I'm re-exploiting them so that our organization can continue to grow, or a tokenism even well, if I hire them, then I'm just being, doing the token thing. Well, we've got a survivor on staff, or whatever. So what do you say to that? Cause I mean, for me, it's I feel like some of that caution is good.
Yeah.
But I don't want the outcome to be silence.
Sure.
Or ignorance on our part for not, so anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I think giving people agency, right? So if I come to you, I'm volunteering. I want to come work for you. I want to come work with you. So just opening up those platforms to say, hey, hiring overcomers, people do it all the time. And either if you are an overcomer or survivor that feel I'm not doing that, I don't want to share my story, or you feel some type of way about it, you scroll right past it.
Yeah, just
or
keep
you
moving.
Delete the email, right? Yeah. And keep it moving. But for someone that is eager to get involved, and it may not just be sharing their experience, it may be you may need someone to do social media for you.
Sure.
And that's their lane. Hey, I can come do social media, and that's my fight. That's my fight back, right? Yeah. And no one ever has to stick a microphone in my face, or I never have to share about my experience. Yeah. I think we need to start looking at the skills of individuals, right? And they have that expert experience, that lived experience as an overcomer, but giving them agency. Hey, you do what you want with that. Hey, you can do whatever. You can come write for us. You can do whatever, but give them the opportunity. I think right now we've it's a narrow lane to get into this community if you're not already established. Or if you're not already being seen doing the work and stuff. But a lot of that I'm taking on personally as I'm being really intentional about lifting up survivors. 1211, there's a hidden mission and a hidden goal of that. Like the whole purpose of it is to elevate and develop survivor leaders. And that doesn't necessarily mean leaders in the anti-trafficking community,
sure,
but leaders in their families, leaders in their communities. What do they want to do?
Yeah.
Because when I think of survivor leadership, that's what I think of. Survivor leadership to me is not just contributing to the anti-trafficking community. There are other things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about special needs, right? That community. Yeah. So I'm doing, I want to do work over there.
Yeah.
Not just being defined by the anti-trafficking community. But there are those that we need to give them options, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, I love that. I mean, I think it's so important. I know, it's so important for us all to hear. It's like, you don't even have to, hire an overcomer and tell anybody that they experience trafficking.
Right.
Which is what I hear you saying. It's like, maybe they're just really good at bookkeeping.
Right.
Right. And so it's that agency part where it's like, maybe there's a staff full of survivors of trafficking, but nobody even knows because that's not what they're doing. They're just doing work.
Right.
They're just being people
and
living life. And that's just a part of their story. It doesn't define their whole being.
Absolutely.
That has to be retold and rehashed all the time.
Yep. See, you translate for me. You just packaged all that and made it make sense.
Well, that's what a good podcast host does. We just restate, you're the one with the insights. We just restate it so that if you're watching or listening, you're catching what Kathy's saying. I want to thank you for your voice. You are one of those people in my life where it's like people ask me, I get asked a lot about trafficking questions, right? Friends call, I get texts, I get emails like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, I can answer some stuff, but I'm like, well, here's what I'm hearing from overcomers. And your voice is one of like a community of numerous overcomers that I'm following, I'm reading, I'm listening to, I'm attending conferences to listen to, because like we never want to communicate something out of ignorance. Like I always want to communicate from like the experts need to speak, right? Yeah. And so I say all that to say thank you for being one of those people. Thank you for constantly being willing to like have a conversation and to be bold and to be truthful and to be honest and to cut to the point. So I kind of just want you to have space here at the end of the podcast. We do this with everybody, but how can we support you? How can we support your work? Is there more you want to say about 1211 Partners? How can people find you? What does 1211 Partners need from us?
Yeah, this is a wonderful platform for 1211 Partners. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Honestly,
because we're in the process of like building a team. We have a mentor training coming up, and so we need mentors. We need people that are
okay. When
you ask that question about like some practical ways that people can get involved that may not be harmful, that are not harmful. Mentoring is one way, walking alongside individuals. Think of it as a friendship. Mentorship is so like overrated.
Yeah.
But like, just think of it as like, I just want to partner with someone to help them be great. And then in turn, I get to be great too, because they're sewing into me too. So that's what I think of. That's what I think of when I think of mentorship. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
And so individuals that want to walk alongside and partner with overcomers, we would be more than happy to invite those individuals. And then in the spirit of collaboration, I just want to encourage everyone just to work together. Let's work together, and let's not take our eyes off of the true meaning and the true purpose of our calling, and that is to elevate individuals that have been exploited and harmed by this crime. So please, let's just work together. Yeah, collaboration is everything. I mean, nobody's going to solve this problem alone. Right. And everybody has a lane, and there's a place for everyone in this work at so many different levels. Yeah. And we need each other. Yep. Where can people learn more about 1211 Partners? 1211.org, the website, and then on social media, 1211 Partners on Facebook and Instagram. And that's TWELVE. #1.org. There you go. Yes. 1211. Yep. Kathy, thank you again for coming on the podcast. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your partnership. And I look forward to seeing so many more cool things and great work coming out of 1211. Thank you. I really appreciate being here. Yeah. And thanks for watching the podcast today. Thank you for joining us today for this episode.
If you were inspired by this content today, please share, rate, and leave a review. Also, please consider making a donation at elijahrising.org/donate. Your support helps us continue the vital mission to combat sex trafficking. Until next time.